What's going on, button pushers? Welcome to the channel. If you've been following me for a while, you might remember back in March I made a video about a camera that I was really excited for, and it was not the R5. Today I get to share with you guys my experience with the red Komodo. First thing I need you guys to know is that everything that I'm going to be talking about here is beta firmware. So everything physical about it is final, but everything that comes as far as the software and the technical stuff is all beta, and it's subject to change. So take everything I'm saying lightly, very lightly. First of all, I want to say that this camera is 2 pounds. That is less than the 1DX Mark III, because it's just a tiny little cube, but it has so much built into it, and that's just what I love about it. The size, the way it fits so perfectly in my hand, and how it just feels good. It feels great to hold it. So there's a lot of things that we're getting on here that we may not get on DSLRs, but there's also a lot that we're not getting that we may get on some cinema cameras. So it's kind of a hybrid between the two. It's like the middle ground. So we're getting two 3.5mm ports, one for headphones, one for microphones, as well as a port for CFast cards. The memory card reader is CFast, nothing too advanced, nothing you're gonna have to spend too much money on. So I really like that they did that, because it is going to be a lot cheaper solution than having to use red Minimags. We're also getting ports for 2 Canon BP batteries, and that is amazing because it's so much cheaper than a lot of other options. And we're also being able to hot swap them, so that means that we're able to take one battery out if we need to, and the camera will not have to shut off, and we can just replace it. It'll run through one battery and then switch to the next one when that one has died. We're also getting SDI, DCN, as well as Wi-Fi. We're gonna get all that wireless connection, so we can actually connect it to a phone, an iPad, or a lot of different things, and we're gonna talk about that a little bit later. The overall build of this is amazing, not to mention the touch screen monitor on top. That is something that a lot of people never really expected to come out of a red, because no red cameras have a touch screen or a monitor built into the camera. This touchscreen actually is able to control the touchscreen autofocus that comes with the camera, and we're going to be talking about that later as well. But man, this monitor, you'd think that it was way too small to be able to actually see anything, to actually be able to use, but honestly, when I was in Colorado, I didn't bring a monitor. I just ran straight off the build of the camera, and this was actually really good. We're also having fans on both sides. So we have fans on the right side and the exhaust on the left side. So that really brings in the cooling capabilities of the camera, so it doesn't overheat, so it doesn't build up too much heat. So you're able to actually handle the camera very well, and it actually is able to keep continuously going. It also comes with an RF mount, a Canon RF mount, and that increases capabilities and potential for so many different things. There's also an RF to a PL mount, RF to EF mount, RF to pretty much any mount, and the capabilities are just amazing. There's so much that you can actually do, and I'm so excited to create more content with this. Anyways, I'm just super excited, and I love the overall build of this camera. It just feels so right in the hand. It's not heavy at all. It feels good shooting. You can shoot all day with it because it's just that lightweight, and it's not going to tire you out. I love it. I just love the way this handles. Anyways, let's get further into the resolutions and everything else. We're getting 6K up to 40 frames per second, 4K up to 60 frames per second, and 2K up to 120 frames per second. Now, it's not as good as many of the other red cameras. I wish we'd have like 6K up to 48 or something, 6K up to 60. Honestly, I can't complain for the price. I got this for $7,000 because it's a Stormtrooper edition, but the Komodos are going to be ranging around $6,000 without any special edition. Now, before we jump into it, I want you to know that each resolution jump has a crop in, meaning at 6K you have full frame, at 4K it crops in a bit, and at 2K it crops in even more. And I'm going to show you guys an example of this here, but it's all red cameras, not just the Komodo. All red cameras have this, and it's because when you're using the full frame of the sensor, you're at 6K, and then when you jump into 4K it kind of crops in because you're not using that full 6K sensor. You're actually using a portion of it for the 4K, and the same thing for the 2K, so that's why it crops in a little bit. But honestly, no problem. Anyways, let's talk about the footage. The footage is absolutely amazing. Let's start with the 6K. The 6K, super sharp, super beautiful. The images that come out of this camera are absolutely amazing. I love the way it looks, and honestly, I'm surprised as the way it came out and how sharp I actually was able to get the images without a monitor, without anything else, but just simply using this base body with a lens and 2 batteries. Just using this monitor alone, super clean. Like honestly, I was able to do so much with just this tiny build. No setup, no accessories, nothing. Just the monitor on the camera itself. The 6K is stunning. It's sharp and I love everything about it. But again, I wish we were able to get more than 40 frames per second, because some slow motion in this, some really good slow motion would be amazing. But that's why we have the 4K. So now let's jump into the 4K. The 4K, super smooth slow motion. I love the way it comes out. The sad part about shooting with Red is that if you're not shooting 24 frames per second, you're not gonna get audio, and it's already gonna be slow motion for you. Because we know that maybe shooting on the 1DX2, the 1DX3, when you're shooting at 60, you get audio, you get, you know, real-time playback. But when it comes to Red, anything above 24 is going to be already slow mode for you, and that's kind of annoying sometimes, but honestly it's okay, because most of the things I shoot, I don't really keep the audio anyways. So this kind of makes you need to know whether you need audio, whether you need slow motion or not. Honestly, I'm definitely okay with however it is, because I will make it work, because the camera quality that comes out of this is super amazing. Lastly, let's bring in the 2K. 2K 120 frames per second specifically. This is beautiful. I love the slow motion on top of the quality. We're getting very clean red raw in 120 frames per second out of this tiny little camera, and this footage looks amazing. I love how smooth, it's just amazing. The slow motion is just so good. So now let's talk about the different codecs and bit rates that we're getting out of this camera. In RAW, we have MQ, HQ, and now LQ. I do not, however, have any footage about LQ, because as I'm recording this video, today is the day I get that firmware update for LQ, so I was not able to play around with it before making this video. But HQ stands for high quality, MQ stands for medium quality, and LQ stands for low quality. And honestly, I feel like both are not too much of a difference in quality, just kind of different in data rates. So it all comes down to data rates. How long can you shoot? How much space do you need for your memory card for the day? Are you shooting all day? How much time do you need for recording? HQ is definitely going to take so much more memory space than MQ, and MQ is going to take more space than LQ. So if you decide you're going to have to shoot all day and you really want to shoot in RAW, LQ is going to be your best friend. But if you know that you're shooting on and off very short content and you're not actually going to get that much, it's going to be HQ for that highest potential quality. Here's a gist of kind of how it comes out to play. HQ is going to be 30 minutes of recording at 512 gigabyte memory cards. Yeah, very short. Now, aside from RAW, we're actually getting ProRes as well. So as far as ProRes options, we're going to get 422 ProRes as well as 422 ProRes HQ. Of course, again, HQ is going to take up a lot more memory space than regular 422. Honestly, aside from RAW, if you're looking to shoot all day, like really all day on one memory card, ProRes is going to be your best friend, and honestly, it's still really good when it comes to coloring and all that good stuff, except the only thing you're not going to be able to do is maintain all that detail, because there's going to be a little bit of compression. When it comes down to RAW, you're actually able to go into Premiere and actually play around with everything that the camera kind of has as far as settings for RAW and things you can change on the spot that you normally aren't able to change when it comes to MP4s or MOVs or even ProRes videos. Now let's talk about the autofocus. So the autofocus is usable. It's definitely better than expected. I didn't really expect it to be usable, because the last time I saw phase detection was on the Panasonic GH4, GH5, GH5S, S1H, and they weren't all that great at all. Like, they're not usable. The Red phase detection autofocus has so much potential and it actually works really well. Like, I was able to focus track in and out and stuff for a single spot on the camera. It does not have tracking, it does not have, auto detect, it doesn't have any of that fancy features. But honestly, I could see a lot coming out of this camera if they update with the firmwares, and the focus is already really good. It's really amazing. I see a lot of potential in it. So if they keep working on it, this could be an absolutely amazing camera. And it's really cool because you can use the touchscreen for autofocus, and this is the first Red camera that has autofocus in it. So maybe in the future, we're gonna see a bigger line cinema camera that has autofocus. Who knows? But we do have single and continuous autofocus, but the thing is it only supports a few lenses right now, and right now, for all I know, is that it is all Canon lenses. So Canon lenses have autofocus, but other ones don't. Like when I used my Sigma 18-35 on this, I was not getting any autofocus, which is a little bit sad, but I don't mind manual focusing. I did actually find myself using manual focus a lot more than autofocus, just because it's kind of what I like to do. And on the topic of lens support, they do have an RF mount, but at the moment, RF lenses are not actually supported on this camera, and it's kind of sad because I brought an RF lens with me, a 16-35, and it was the only wide lens I brought with me on the trip, and I was expecting to at least be able to manual focus, but I actually couldn't even manual focus. It doesn't pick up any information at all from the lens. Eventually they will have a firmware update to fix that issue, but as for now, they actually come with a RF to EF adapter in the box right here. Who knows if it's gonna normally come with that when you order the regular Komodos, but the custom editions I know for sure are all getting the adapter because the firmware isn't fixed just yet. Hopefully they get that fixed soon because I'm super excited to be able to use this image stabilized lenses on this camera. I noticed that the image stabilization actually doesn't work with any lens just yet because I had my 70-200 on here and the IS was not working just yet. So hopefully they get those fixed in a firmware update very soon. The internal audio.
Welcome to the David Wing Show.
We're the air. Welcome on board.
The internal audio is not going to be that great when it comes to a camera like this, but honestly, it's really just used for syncing audio. So if you ever need to sync audio, that's what the internal audio is there for, to make it a lot easier for you. But honestly, the internal audio that comes out of this camera is not the best, but that's okay, because who actually uses internal audio of cameras anyways, you know, like, why aren't you using a microphone? Let's take a minute to talk about the Wi-Fi and the wireless capabilities. Now, when it comes down to connecting to a phone, it does get a little bit complicated when you're actually on that initial connection. You have infrastructure mode and you have AHOC mode. AHOC mode is going to be that mode that you use when you are out on a shoot, you don't have a Wi-Fi connection already established. And infrastructure mode is when you're going to be like indoors, you already have Wi-Fi that you can connect to, and it's kind of like an access point for both the phone and camera. But AHOC is going to be connecting directly to the camera to control it. Now, when it comes down to the app is really good. It's really stable and it actually is almost real time. You can see that when I move my hand across the camera, you can see that it's almost the same as on the screen. You know, it does, you know, cut in and out just a little bit. That might be my Wi-Fi in my phone. Overall, the app itself and the way you can control the camera so smoothly is amazing. You can basically use it as a wireless monitor. You can use it as a first AC monitor, but honestly, I would definitely recommend using a different monitor or, you know, an actual rig. But if it comes down to it, you can definitely use your phone, your iPad, or whatever it is to connect to the camera and actually control it from there. And it is so amazing. You can do everything. You can focus from the camera. You can, you know, touchscreen focus. You can do anything. And that is so sick. This camera also has a global shutter instead of a rolling shutter, so when you're throwing the camera around, you're not gonna get any of that distortion, any of that skewing, and the images is gonna look a lot more natural, a lot more clean. So it's gonna be more of like the naked eye kind of look rather than a digital camera kind of look where you're throwing the camera around, everything's getting skewed and distorted. It's gonna be a lot more natural and it's gonna feel better. Let's talk about a few of the things that I really wish the camera had. I wish it was just a little bit more modular. You can't really ask for too much though, because it is really small and it really packs a punch for the price. But you know, sometimes I wish maybe there was an HDMI port, or there's an XLR port, or you know, just more screws on the body that you can mod up the camera with. But honestly, you can't ask for too much, and I really love the way it is, so it's honestly not too bad of a problem. it could always be a little bit more modular. And the lack of accessories. It's not a red problem, it's not a thing, but it's just because it's in a beta firmware, but I really wish I had the accessories right now. It's not a negative, it's not anything that, I'm holding against them, but I really wish there were accessories now that I could use. Now there is, but they're super expensive and they're on back order. I already ordered mine and I'm just waiting on them to come. I have a whole tilted package coming and I'm really ready for it to come in so I can start using the camera a lot more and start rigging it up and, finding out the best ways to use it. But right now I'm just waiting on that, and I can't wait for them to come in and start shooting so much more sick content with this camera. So overall, my experience with this camera was amazing. I really love the way that this camera shoots. I love the way it feels. I love the capabilities of this camera. I love all that it can do, and the quality that comes out of it is super amazing. I'm super excited to have my first cinema camera, even if it's just a tiny Komodo rather than a huge DSM-Z2, because man, this camera packs a punch. And it is so amazing, and I love everything that comes out of it. Anyways, that is all for today's video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and make sure to hit that subscribe button. Drop me a comment below if you guys have any questions at all about the camera. I will be more than happy to answer these questions for you guys. And yeah, that's all. Have an amazing day, morning, night, wherever you're watching from. Keep pushing buttons, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.
Ryan Little.